Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mercurial Gems. I'm Jen.
I'm Vi.
And this is going to be part 2 on us talking about Chiron. So, in the previous video, we talked about Chiron and the different signs. We talked about it generally as a mini planet and some of its backstory. And in this video, we're going to talk about Chiron and the houses, but also share a little bit of our own personal Chiron work that we have done because Chiron is, as we shared, a really important part of your astrology. So, highly recommend you pulling up your chart and seeing where Chiron lands for you and what planets are around or aspecting your Chiron, just so you can start to unpack the story because it's a very important part of your chart. So, for myself, I'm Chiron Leo. It lands in the 12th house, which I will definitely share more about as an energy as we go through the houses. But I think for me, my Chiron has been so important because with that Leo energy, I typically go through these really big up and downs on really strongly creating, wanting to share a lot of my light, my joy, my passions. And no matter what I do creatively to expose myself, I never feel like it always feels fragile, like it could just disappear and that no one would know who I am in 1 second. It is definitely like a spotlight wound where I even have like a very large following on TikTok, and no matter how much validation I get, I don't feel like it's ever quite enough, and that's just as a feeling. I have obviously learned a lot through understanding astrology and knowing that this is going to be an itch that will never scratch. So I have to make sure that I'm loving the process of what I'm doing and be very unattached to the outcome. My Chiron also being in the 12th makes me extremely empathetic of other people. I have to do very regular energetic cleansing nearly every day because I am such a sponge of other people's pain. I take it in. I can feel others' pain in my own body, physical pain, mental pain, emotional, energetic. Like, I really am a strong perceiver. It's also what makes me very good at working in physical therapy and working as a healer in the healing professions because I can feel for other people. Figuring out my own feelings takes a tremendous amount of work. Figuring out my own feelings is always very tricky. The 12th house is a tricky house for that. So I really have to do a lot of internal work, meditation work, spirit work to actually be able to perceive and feel my feelings. And as far as aspects go, having Chiron with my moon just means that when I open the void to feeling feelings, it's so much sharper and intenser than most people I feel like experience feelings. It's kind of like either leaning into this void of everything or nothing at all. That's kind of just the sensation. And I have Chiron actually very linked to my North Node. So it's a huge part of my destiny to help people with their pain. And I think everything I do mirrors that. Teaching people astrology is going into their shadows and what's hard. Doing physical therapy is helping people with pain in their physical body. It's definitely a huge part of all the work I do. So that's my personal unpacking with my Chiron. What about you?
So I have Chiron moon on my midheaven and conjunct my Mars. And that's just the conjunction points. I feel like Chiron touches pretty much everything in my chart. It's opposing my Saturn. I just went through my Saturn return. I personally didn't really even know about Chiron. I barely knew about Saturn approaching my Saturn return. I'm like 2 years into like deep astrology study with Jen, and yeah, it started out that I was just trying to understand my Saturn return better, and Chiron being opposing my Saturn, I was like, okay, well, let me learn about this planet. And I just want to chunk on here in the beginning that Chiron isn't talked about a whole lot in like main astrology. We hear a lot about big three, big six. This year in particular, you've probably been hearing a lot about the outer planets because all of them have been moving. That doesn't typically happen as aggressively as it has been happening this year. But out I think outside of the primary planetary placements, Chiron is something that people don't talk about as much because we don't know as much about Chiron. It's very much so still in its study phase. We actually discovered Chiron in 1977, which we talked about in last video. Chiron's first Chiron return since discovery will be in 2026. So, yeah, like I said, it's just still an energy that's like being studied, but we do still have a ton of information on it. And I think learning how to alchemize that will help with a lot of this collective energy shift that has happened this year. Circling back to my more personal part of my chart, learning about Chiron through my Saturn return has really helped me, for one, with my emotions, because it's almost an exact conjunction with my moon. And so for me, I think it goes both ways. Anytime a big wound comes up, there's a big emotion that comes with it. Anytime I have a big emotion, there's a big wound that's hiding, lurking in the corner. And with this being on directly on my midheaven, it always ends up being pretty public. Like, I don't feel like any of my pain gets to be like hidden or private. Like, I feel like I end up having to like verbally process with the world because I've crashed out at the worst possible moment. And that's just where I am in my Chiron journey right now. I know that there are days where I am embodying these greater pains and lessons in my life in a way that's like really helpful. I have about 6 different Chiron aspects in my chart though, so to get into the full nuance of my Chiron placements, we could be here all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that just gives you a little taste of just some of our higher lessons. Now, if you didn't watch the last video, definitely check out Chiron and the different signs, but let's talk about Chiron and the different houses. So, starting with Chiron in the first house, this is going to really present as a lot of wounds that have to be worked through in your personal image, your personal sense of self. It can also feel very exposing because people tend to always see your pain very visibly. And with Chiron in the first house, there's going to be a lot of natural self-esteem issues that you have to end up cultivating self-love to kind of you have to cultivate self-love to be able to work through a lot of them. Chiron in the second house is going to be wounds around your personal value system. So there can also be some of the insecurity that is mirrored in the first house, but the second house is going to really be wounds on I can't do anything for me. It's going to be a little tricky to actually step up and want to do stuff for yourself. You tend to want other people to come in and do the work for you. So actually trusting that you can attract things for yourself, and that includes money, building your own just surroundings, and actually making a way for yourself. You're going to have to push through a lot of vulnerability to get there. Chiron in the third house is going to be wounds around your immediate environment. So this can be wounds from early childhood that have to do with just the environment you grew up in. It can be wounds that connect to siblings or just what was around you, local community, neighborhood, as you were just going through your childhood. But that also ends up cultivating your thinking and communication patterns. So it is the wound of communication in a lot of ways too with the third house, but it'll show you how your immediate environment ends up affecting the way you output information. And as you start to change your surroundings to better encompass what you want, that'll ultimately end up reflecting in the way you're able to share and speak.
Yeah, so then you have your 4th house Chirons. Yeah, so we're looking at a lot of your early childhood, like how those experiences have shaped your thinking, shaped your values. Also, what makes you feel safe, what brings you like that level of comfort is going to be your 4th house. So Chiron may bring up wounds around, maybe housing wasn't as like secure in your early childhood, so then you have this like deep need to be very secure in that now. You also may have the tendency to like always want to uplift the underdog. You yourself may feel like an underdog in many scenarios. So then we have our fifth house Chirons. These are going to have themes revolving around play, creative expression, what you pride yourself on, and even your inner child. So a lot, again, of themes around your early childhood, what made you light up. If you have a fifth house Chiron, I would personally ask myself, what stops me from that creative expression and allowing myself that freedom to create beauty in the world. Chiron in the sixth house is going to have themes revolving around your daily habits, your routine, maybe your service to others. A big shadow of Chiron in this house can be codependent tendencies. This also might have health undertones. Maybe you're someone who, whether within or without of your control, just struggles with a lot of different health scares or issues. Any energy like that could show up as OCD. Being that it's like a house of health, you may have some hypochondria or even wounds around providers not listening to your health concerns. Not necessarily hypochondria, but like the reverse of that being, no, this is my lived experience, and then just not seeing it in the test and not like validating that.
Mm-hmm. Then we go into Chiron in the seventh house. This is going to be themes around your relationships. So there can be a lot of wounding that's there. The people that you end up getting into intimate or close relationships with can be the very thing that exposes a lot of pain for you. So these relationships are going to take you holding a sense of self and making sure you're actually attracting what you want, not just trying to serve the other person or make the relationship work. As you end up developing a stronger sense of self, your Chiron relationships will also mirror a lot more safety for you. But just remember that it is normal to be triggered in relationships. You can find the higher way of learning how to communicate through that and not either shutting down and letting the other person always have control over that, or completely staying out of relationships when you actually do crave some closeness. Chiron in the eighth house is a very mystical placement once it's alchemized, but there can be a lot of themes around the death and rebirth cycles in your own personal life. You might have gone through a lot of change and it feels like life continuously blows up and you just end up restarting somewhere else. You can lose a lot through other people with Chiron in the eighth house because the eighth house is such a merging energy over time, but you also can completely try to block change from happening, block any intimate closeness from happening, resist all merging when you actually have this very potent ability to be able to read and exchange energy with other people. So over time, you'll learn how to alchemize that as you just make sure you hold self form and trust that you can really lean into connections in this really, really deep way, deeper than what most can do. Then with Chiron in the ninth house, we have the wound around our belief systems being enhanced here. So the ninth house has a lot of themes to do with different cultures, different higher learning avenues. So it can be really tricky to actually sort through your belief systems here. There can be wounds around your higher education, maybe not accessing it, or maybe only believing you can get validation by continuously learning something. So you want to look at your relationship to those things and making sure that your belief system is actually what you want to be signing up for, because I think there can be a big wound on really pushing beliefs onto other people with heavy ninth house aspected placements. So looking into the depths of all of that. And then we have our Chiron 10th house. I'll pass the mic to you for that one.
Chiron in the 10th house is the highest point in your chart. It is the most exposed area of your life. So if your Chiron is there, it's all out on the table, baby. And that's just something that, like, really, truly you're going to have to embrace in your life path, is that your wounds are not meant to be hidden. They're meant to be digested. Not necessarily in a, like, trauma dump in public setting, but, like, you have to own what is happening. This also can have strong work themes. I personally have just a really interesting relationship with my 10th house, because anytime I have a feeling I want to lean into work, I have my Chiron there. So there's like a lot of wounds around career paths in general. You may have hopped a lot of different jobs and had a lot of different, I call it trial and error. Like, I just feel like when I look at my resume in life, it is a lot of like, let me try all of this so I know what I don't want to do.
You also have authority issues that come with that Chiron 10th house.
Such bad authority issues. And I really don't want to be that way. It just is there in my chart. Like, it's something you just cannot control. Virgo is in my 10th house. So, like, there's a part of me that's like, let me follow all the rules and do it the right way. But if the rules don't make sense to me, I'm questioning it. I'm like, okay, so I see this is how you want me to do it, but this is actually the right way. So I'm going to do it this way until you're paying attention, and then I'll do it your way just so you don't question me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like actually a problem. Yeah, so your 11th house is going to be wounds around belonging and community, and honestly, probably embracing your inner rebellious little weirdo. Like, conformity is going to feel like something you want to lean into, but the reality is you're not supposed to conform. Like, I'm not necessarily saying like leader of the pack, but like your uniqueness, your brilliant, just individualized self is what makes you such a valuable piece of the community you're trying to belong into. And so you can have a lot of wounding that. Also, in the 11th house, you might have some wounds around friendships and just a lot of coming and going. Maybe in your early adolescence, you were someone who was kind of in every group at school, but then also to feeling like you're not actually part of any of those groups. And that might continue to alchemize similarly as you age.
So I'm a Chiron 12th house. This is arguably one of the tougher Chiron placements because the 12th house always hides the energy deep in your subconscious so other people can visibly see something that you can't quite feel for yourself. And with Chiron there, people can see and recognize my pain, but I have a really hard time like necessarily like fully relating to it. It kind of doesn't feel as palpable to me. The 12th house Chiron is so empathetic. You can feel what everyone was feeling. You probably grew up in a household where no one was really talking about anything. You just had to feel a lot of undertones. And over time, you have got to learn how to take care of your energy and do regular things to reset. The 12th house Chiron needs a lot of alone time because where you start and other people begin gets very confusing, and you can be acting out a lot of things outside of your own energy. And I do think that other people can visibly see you're suffering a lot more than you'll identify it for yourself. So it takes a lot of introspection and journaling and tracking to start to get a grip on what is actually hurting you, how much subconscious patterns are actually playing into what you do every day. I have had so much transformation in this, but it takes a lot of work, and I never get to just skip that work. So I don't think you can avoid having constant internal journeying and processing when you have a 12th house Chiron. So this is a general overview of Chiron in all of the houses. We would love to hear in the comments where your Chiron is and anything that you feel like you've learned or maybe pieced together from this video. V offers Chiron readings. I offer birth chart readings. You can check out that information below if you actually want to delve into your personal astrology more in either way. And with that, we appreciate you listening to another episode of Mercurial Gems. We have much more coming. Please like and subscribe and continue to hang out with us. And we appreciate you. Thanks for talking.
Bye.
Bye.